Right, let's get back to it. Slavery has been abolished, but has the Western world stopped slavery? The thing you've got to bear in mind is that the majority, the vast majority of people do not comprehend what's actually going on. Okay? Most people, when you talk to them, you start talking about slavery, a lot of people get really upset with the use of the word because they don't like to see themselves or be seen as slaves. But the facts actually speak for themselves because we're living in a society where we are told what to do and punished if we don't do it. That in itself is a definition of slavery. So, slavery certainly hasn't stopped. Now, this is the 56th Supplementary Convention on Slavery, etc., etc. Considering that freedom is the birthright of every human being. Well, that's logical. I don't think there would be anybody that would disagree with that. I'm sure there's some in other quarters that would. No one shall be held in slavery or servitude, and that slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms. Now, what we've got is this deception where they operate, the regime operates on your consent through your silence. It's fraud, you know. And so they use a trickery for you to become involved in their slave system. So the way they look at it is that you've volunteered to become a slave because you didn't say you wouldn't be one. Hence it comes back to your proclamation. I am slave to no one. That doesn't mean to say that somebody or a group or an association cannot use force upon me. That's their choice and that's their responsibility. My responsibility is to stand in my right, our rights, to uphold those. So, again, you can get hold of this document, this 56th Supplementary Convention on Slavery. I think I've put it up on, it is up on the Universal Sovereign Facebook page, which is a community Facebook page attached to my Facebook page, which is Marcellus. And we're just in the process of actually putting up a website called Universal Sovereigns, ending in NZ, to put this information up and make it more readily available to people. So we've got all this great documentation in place, but it is not being adhered to by the very ones tasked with upholding it, because they are operating as a separate entity, and their perception or understanding is that they are not bound by these things because they didn't agree to them. Well, we're all sauce for the goose, the sauce for the gander. If they are not bound by them because they did not agree to them, then how can we be bound by things we have not agreed to? So again, the solution is presented by the deeds of the oppressive regime. The oaths of office are there for a particular reason, particularly within the Constabulary and the Judiciary, because that's how the operation is supposed to run. Now, throughout any of the Western, in most countries, particularly those of the Western worlds that are under the so-called regime of democracy, which actually means authority or power of the people, we don't live in one. We live in probably what would be more correctly termed an oligarchy, where we have a few controlling the many. The only way the few can control the many is when the many are not aware of actually what's going on, which is the situation we have mostly today. When we're operating in the courts, we're using it as an opportunity to educate. We need constabulary, we need judiciary, because these modalities that have been put in place where we can peacefully resolve differences. If I inadvertently cause harm to another, I have the absolute right of being able to restore the harmony with the one who I'm in disharmony with, without the interference from a third-party interloper, without the interference from somebody else coming along and saying, well, yes, that's all very well, but you have to pay for this. Okay. Because what we're having is that we've got the situation now where reparation for harm caused is actually going to a corporate entity and actually not going to the people who were caused the harm. You know? So these documents are in place, they're internationally recognised, and these are very good tools for holding the public servants and those tasked with upholding our rights, of holding them in order. It's just that they're not being used in that manner. Now, I've been in court where I've been told that my human rights were inadmissible in the court. Well, straight away, we're not in a court of law. Because the 48 Declaration is international law. Nuremberg principles say you can't override. You can't do a crime against the peace or a crime against humanity. You can't, create an association to be able to do this and think you're going to get away with it. So who polices the policeman? We do. Who polices the judiciary? We do. But what's happened over a period of time through trickery and deceit is we have abdicated that responsibility to institutions who are, it's like putting the fox in to look after the hen house. So when we placed a judicial complaint to a judge who, by the guilt of the admission of his own deeds, was not operating to his oath of office, we knew it was going to be whitewashed, which it was, because who looks at judicial complaints? Other judges. It's and all of these people, bearing in mind, also operate in fear of the tax department, because that's the controlling body in this. This is the main arm of the oppression, is through taxing. What is a tax? It's a burden. It's a burden placed upon one. Now, I don't pay income tax. I exercise my right by not paying income tax. I choose to pay GST. But I don't pay income tax. And I haven't paid income tax for some years. And in the occupation that I earn what one would probably consider pretty reasonable coin. What I do is I put my energy out to where I see in my community it's going to act as the most benefit to the most people. Now, that's my right. It's all our rights, surely. We put our skills, our knowledge, our energy into producing something, creating something, then anything that we get for that is our property. It's nobody else's. Nobody else has the right to reach over your shoulder and say, we'll have some of that. Because it seems to me bizarre that we've got this situation now where we've got people who are finding it difficult to feed and house their families. The first thing that happens when they earn some money is some of it gets stolen off them. It's completely unlawful. It's actually wrongful seizure of private property, I suppose would be the correct term for it. Somebody gives me money for doing something, that's my property. Because it's my property, I'm the one that determines what to do with it. So, if it costs $50,000 to live comfortably, then surely the first $50,000 that anybody earns should be absolutely tax-free. Because you require that. You require that to feed yourself, to house yourself, to have a reasonable transport, to be able to avail yourself to the utilities like powers and phones. And if you require $50,000 to provide a comfortable standard of living, which is your right under the 48 Declaration to do that, then who has the right to take any of that off you before you've even been able to fulfill your responsibilities as an adult, as a parent, as a caregiver, when you've got somebody reaching their hand over their shoulder and taking what's actually rightfully yours? It's theft. It's piracy. Pirating your energy. And if put up the word a pirate or pirates looks pretty close to this. And that's what it is. It's a parasitical energy. Operates through greed. It's like an infection. As I say, I've come across people who have enormous amounts of wealth who do so much philanthropic work in helping other people. It's absolutely amazing. And you also have the others. Those that have enormous wealth who have got it through trickery and deceit. Now, because money is energy, and it's our means of exchanging energy, those who are hoarding lots are actually holding on to human energy. It's It's not theirs. It's from the people they took it from. And if they took it through nefarious means, they've pirated that energy. So if you want to restore a balance, one way you can do is say anybody that has a debt now becomes a credit, and anybody that thinks they've got a credit now becomes a debt. The only way you're going to get rid of your debt is to pay it back. Because those who hold the purse strings are the ones who are parasiting the most from humanity. So we've got a parasitical system that's been allowed to evolve. And the only way we're going to fix it is by fixing it, by we the people doing it. It's not going to happen. You can have a busted piece of machinery, it is not going to fix itself. And the system of government is a technology and it's a piece of machinery and it's broken because those who have been operating it are operating it incorrectly. The structure is still there. Everything that we need is in place. It's just that those who are operating within those fields are not operating in order. They're way out of order. Only we can restore the order. And we have a responsibility and an obligation to do that for our kids. Because the slavery now has gone from being covert and undercover to being very overt. Now it's right in your face. Okay? And that's why a lot of our young people have no hope. They feel it. There's no hope. I'll just go and absolutely trash myself and do everything I can because there's no hope. You know, what life's going to be left for me? So we come back to the situation that we all hold a responsibility. Now, whether you want to choose to step into that responsibility or not is completely up to the individual, and make no judgment upon the individual for doing that because everybody comes from different circumstances. I do this because I'm able to. I do this because I believe it's a responsibility that I have because of the knowledge that I hold, and that's why I share it. So these documents are in place, and all we need to do is actually bring them to light. And how do we bring them to light? We start shining light upon them by enacting them, by start calling them out. So when we have a public official or anyone who is operating in a way that is not of a benefit to all humanity, then what they're actually doing is parasiting upon it. They're parasite upon humanity. They make that distinction by their deeds. I make no judgment upon them. That's their choice. They absolutely have the choice to exercise the free will. However, when their exercising of free will is causing harm to another, then as sovereign have a responsibility to do what we can to alleviate that harm. Because there is no need for pain, and yet the universe has an unlimited amount of it. And we've all felt it at times. But we also know inherently here that we could all live in peace and harmony and share in the absolute abundance of this world and totally enjoy the diversity of cultures that are available on the world. It's only one thing that stops that happening. Fear. Construct of the mind. There is no thing to fear. People say there's nothing to fear but fear itself. Well, you're afraid of being afraid. You're already afraid, so you just missed out. Most people live in fear of an outcome. Well, when you actually get fully into this walk, what you realise is that the outcome, you are responsible for what you do. The outcome is going to be determined by what we all do. Because we're a social memory complex. Humanity is a social memory complex. That's why we're all connected to each other, irrespective of our race, creed or religion. We're all connected to each other. We're part of what's called a social memory complex. That's why when something happens to somebody else, it impacts upon us all. So we're going to get into a bit more of that later, because a lot of people have this idea that it's just me, I can't do anything, I'm just alone. No, you're part of a social memory complex. There's a lot you can do in your individuality. In fact, every thought you have, every word you speak, every deed you do has an impact upon the well-being of every living thing on this planet. Because there's one thing.
Present, isn't it? Like, that's the word present. If you break it down, it's pre-sent.
Yeah.
The present is pre-sent.
As they say, you know, the history is there to learn from. The future is yet to be created. The gift is the now. That's why they call it the present. Kung Fu Panda 2. So I'm not going to go into any great depth of these because most of you have access to computers, and those that haven't, please help those. Those that have, please help those who haven't. Because what we're going to move into is the constitutional order. Because what our ancestors from both sides of the globe came to an understanding and put in place for us was a place to stand, and documentation that supports that. And I'll get into that in a bit more detail in a minute. Debt bondage. Student loan, debt bondage, mortgage, debt bondage. When the Minister of Finance, when they were putting GST up to 15%, remember some years ago? Bill English, Minister of Finance, all compassion to the man, came out and publicly stated that the government was running a slave ship. He didn't actually use those words, but what he said, if we do not raise GST to 15%, every man, woman and child in this country will owe $32,000. How can a child born today owe $32,000? Which is a lot more now, according to their records, by the way. How can that child own that money? That is debt bondage. That's slavery. Slavery through debt bondage. Are we going to continue to allow our children to be enslaved? First off, are we going to continue to allow ourselves to be enslaved? I mean, if you want to be a slave, that's good. That's up to you. That's your choice. Don't force that upon me. So debt bondage is the way this thing works mostly. Councils running out of control and borrowing heaps of money and then foisting it upon the ratepayers. Debt bondage. Government's doing the same. Debt bondage. We've got a situation now where they're looking at buying 30 BMWs for the government and a stretch number. Now they bought 34 brand new ones 3 years ago. Now these vehicles retail around for about $200,000 each. Now logically, if you bought a vehicle for $200,000 and you've got to replace it in 3 years, you're better off buying something different. Why don't you go and get yourself a Toyota Corolla? Because I had a friend who had a Toyota Corolla, did over 1 million kilometres in it and never had the head off it. All he did was put the oil and the water in it.
Most of them have got families that want the old one.
Yeah. So that's why I choose not to pay income tax, because I'd rather put money and my energy towards my community and people within my community, that's why I do these things, than pay for somebody in an expensive suit to sit in a big flash automobile when we've got people that don't have adequate housing and kids who are hungry. You imagine if you have 5,000 people that just stop paying tax. Imagine if you have 10,000. Imagine if you have 100,000.
There's probably already more people than that are not paying income tax.
Well, that's what they found open, particularly in the States too, where a lot of people have stepped out of it. It's very easy to step out of, because again, if they come and impose their will upon me, my first question is, are you running my proclamation? Provide your documentation to show that I'm obliged to give you anything. Because if you can't provide the documentation to show that we've got a lawful agreement here, that I've knowingly and willingly entered into a contract with you, an agreement with you, you don't have anything. Now the interesting thing with the Tax Administration Act of 1994, of which most people don't even know of its existence, and very few have even read, where it actually stipulates within that tax is voluntary. Now that shocks a lot of people, because people suddenly say, oh yeah, but you want to use the hospitals. Actually, no, I don't. I've seen how the hospitals operate. We've got some amazing things with microsurgery and one thing and another, but one thing that defies logic is when you move into a hospital with an ailment or an illness, is why aren't your vitamin levels, your trace elements and your minerals checked? Because most disease is caused through a lack in one of those things, a deficiency. No, but we've got a pill for that. Yeah, well, truth can be a good pill as well. So anyway, go through this 56 Supplementary Convention on Slavery. Again, it reiterates a lot of the other stuff: crimes against humanity, violations of international humanitarian law, gross violations of human rights law. You're culpable for it. But the reason they're not held culpable for it is because there's not enough people standing up going, oi, are you not obliged to uphold these agreements? Ask them the question. Very difficult to get punished for asking a question. And as I say, the only stupid question is the one that is not asked. So, As we can see, slavery hasn't stopped. And as I was saying, it's becoming more and more overt now to where a lot of our young people and our kids, our young people, those in their 20s and 30s, actually feel that there's no hope. There's no hope for them. There's no life for them. You go to school, and generally speaking, you're indoctrinated into a set of beliefs. And you leave school and then you go and get a degree or a higher education, which you're charged for. So that when you go out to work, your energy is parasited off you. Only we can stop it.
The reality, Mark, is teenage suicide has gone through the roof.
Absolutely.
So that, yeah.
Absolutely.
And they turn to drugs and alcohol because they can't see a future.
Exactly. Because most of them watch the black hole in the living room that sucks out their intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Greatest teaching medium ever created by humanity, this thing.
Programming.
However, it's a technology and it can be used for good or for other. The choice is how it's used. Now, how this all ties in with our constitutional order. Now, there's a lot of debate about the flag and there's a lot of propaganda about the flag and all the rest of it. And there's been a lot of talk about that we have no constitution here. Well, we do. In fact, as far as I can see, we're actually quite unique in the world because we actually have two constitutions operating here. We have the constitutional order of the territory. Okay. Now, the document that I'm going to go into now is a document called the He Whakaputanga o Te Rangatiratanga o Nu Tireni, which was internationally recognised 180 years ago. On the 28th of October, 180 years ago, it received international recognition. Before that, it was being discussed and negotiated for 28 years. Tītariti o Waitangi is the constitutional order of the territory, of the realm of New Zealand. 1835 is the constitutional order of the territory. The realm of the New Zealand is a jurisdiction that resides under the constitutional order. I didn't make this up. I didn't make the rules. Our ancestors actually put this in place for us. Okay? It's just never properly been enacted because it's anathema to the slavery system.